Thank
Father
you for the
Sam.
opportunity. Thank you.
Father Sam, we are Catholic digital missionaries and influencers.
Well,
Actually.
that's a nice thought. I do appreciate the sentiment. However, I would like to point out, Matthew,
Yeah.
that we did not receive an invitation
No, we
to the
did not.
Jubilee of Catholic Digital Missionaries and Influencers.
We did not.
And so I'm not sure that we are, in fact.
Yeah. Maybe we just want to be.
I don't know that I want to be.
Yeah. This is a funny topic given our pre-show conversation last week.
Yeah. So this is part of the reason I was actually really glad that this all came up, was because of what we talked about last week privately, and now we can record a little bit of maybe that conversation.
You give the synopsis you want to give.
Recreate it. Well, okay, I think, first of all, the topic of social media and artificial intelligence and just the use of technology very broadly is going to be a major theme, first of all, of the pontificate of Pope Leo XIV.
Yeah.
And it's something that's going to come up repeatedly in the next several months. We will soon have the canonization of St. Carlo Acutis, who is very much considered a digital missionary, and his work using the internet, and he sort of comes along like early social media age. So he's not really of the social media age, but he's sort of at the dawn of it before he
the prototypical digital
away.
Missionary.
Yeah, but so his thing was creating the website that has all of the Eucharistic miracles, and there's a tremendous beauty in all of that. And from the dawn of the internet age, John Paul II encouraged people to use the internet to evangelize, to make it a place where good information could be put out there. Benedict XVI echoed that. But there's this difference, I think, now with social media, and Pope Leo has made clear and explicit reference to AI and the challenges that artificial intelligence presents, especially because there's so much stuff out there now that like Leo himself has already had these fake things created about him. That he said these things and he didn't. And it's sort of taking Pope-ish sounding things.
Yeah.
Like, this sounds like a thing that Leo could have said.
Right.
Or it's pulling from various sources of like Catholic thought, Catholic speakers, or various figures in the Catholic Church, and kind of mashing together these things and then saying this is what Pope Leo said when and he never said those things. Now, fortunately, we have a pretty clear record of what Pope Leo said because we have literal public appearances, and his homilies and his other writings or his other speeches or greetings are all very carefully cataloged by the Holy See.
Right.
And the other great advantage that we have is that Pope Leo sticks to a script. This is one of actually my favorite characteristics of our Holy Father.
I didn't realize that.
If you watch him speak, notice this, like Pope Leo has a tremendous fluency. He speaks very freely when he speaks in Italian. He speaks very freely when he speaks in Spanish, and of course, English is his native language. So there's a freedom of expression that he has, but he speaks very carefully also. So as much as he's very free in those languages, he's also really careful in what he says.
He's not shooting from the hip.
Yeah, what you're going to see is that when he speaks, he's speaking from his prepared text. And so even though he's using a prepared text, there's still something very natural about how he is. You get the sense of the man, I think, and this is a tremendously good thing. But what I really appreciate about him is that he speaks from his prepared text, which means that there's not a moment where he says something that's a little bit off track, or this is something that Pope Francis fell into many times in his ministry, that he would say something, and because he said it in such an off-the-cuff sort of way, it was easy to misinterpret.
Right.
Or the context was sort of lost. Whereas by sticking to his text, you can't really misinterpret Leo. You can't really take something and say, I wonder what he meant by that, because you have the full text of everything that he said right in front of you.
Right.
And that's a really important thing because he's always on camera. Well, there's a gift in that, yes.
Yeah.
But because he's also, this is also a prudent thing. Because he's on camera, because his words are all recorded, like just to have a clarity about what he said is super great.
Totally. I mean, it makes me think about, I think it was Joe Parada on Restless was telling me about the what is it? I don't know. I don't want to say the social construct of being polite, but like why being polite is out of respect for other people. And maybe that makes more sense in that, like, he was talking about dress, and he was talking about like fancy dinnerware, fancy to me, perhaps just appropriate for him. But something that, like, it sets the stage so everybody knows what to do in certain social circumstances.
Sure.
It sets the table for you, if you will, to potentially extend that metaphor.
See what you did there.
But so, like, that's something that's a gift to us, that it's from a prepared text, because now when we say, well, what does this mean? Like, we can actually go through and analyze things, and he's aware of that, I'm sure,
Yeah.
So it's like a service to the people of God.
Yeah.
Which
the
is
other
really
element
kind.
of it. Yeah. The other element of it that's so important is when he does that, he is allowing his office as Pope to be the thing out front rather than his own personality or his own style. He has adopted, and this is an interesting thing. There's an article a couple days ago that I read that talked about how Pope Leo so we've just, as we're recording this, we've just hit about 100 days of his pontificate. We're just over the 100-day mark. Yeah.
I didn't realize it had been that long already.
Now, let's say what this episode is not. Right?
Yeah,
this episode is not a breakdown of the first 100 days of Pope Leo. And unlike when you can do this with a presidency, what are the first 100 days of this presidential term? We can't do that with a pope because we don't know how long he'll be pope. The first 100 days, they can be telling. It's not that they can't tell you something. It's just that we just don't do that with the pope. But in any case, we have just passed 100 days with Pope Leo. I'm not sure exactly when this particular episode will come out, but in any case, as we're recording it, that's where we are. So Leo, in these 100 days, this article was saying, has kept about as low a profile as it's possible for him to keep.
Wow.
And who knows exactly why he did that. But the thing that has really emerged very, very clearly is that he consults very broadly. He likes to listen to people. He likes to meet with them. So rather than just coming in and firing from the hip and just saying whatever's on his mind, his style is very much one of, let me get a sense of where everybody's at.
Right.
And then I'll lay it out. I'll lay down, this is what needs to happen, or based on all these things that I'm hearing, here's how I want to communicate this. At the same time, he has very clearly made a point that the technological element of our world and our society is something that he wants to proclaim the gospel into. The whole use of technology, especially the electronic means of media and communication, and especially the internet and social media, he wants to be able to intelligently proclaim the gospel in those places. And he's recognizing the threat that those places can be to Christian living and to the efficacy of the gospel.
Yeah.
I'm saying, those are my words. Those are not Leo's words, by the way. When I say that, maybe I'm reading into some things here, or maybe I'm adding my own spin, and I'll own that. I'm okay with that. But there is something about the whole, like, internet world and social media and AI that could be used as a tremendous tool, but there's also something, I think, that is actually an obstacle to the proclamation of the gospel. Yeah. And so that brings me to the point. I'm sorry it's taken me this long, Matt.
It's okay. I guess the good news is I already kind of knew the point.
Yeah, exactly. But as last week when we had a chance to chat a little bit, we were talking about social media and kind of some of the things that are on my mind. And then, I don't know, this was probably a day after we had that conversation, or 2 days after we had that conversation. Pope Leo had, in this Jubilee year of 2025, he had his Jubilee of Catholic digital missionaries and influencers. So we had a special audience with them. Now, I don't know who exactly got invited.
I'm pretty sure Michael Lofton got invited. I don't
know who that is, but
he has a show called Reason and Theology. He does a lot of Catholic Orthodox stuff, actually.
Oh, cool.
Yeah. He also put a book out, I'm pretty sure, through Catholic Answers. Okay. I only say that because I follow him on Instagram, and he was in Rome and he had a special lanyard on and he was with a bunch of other Catholic influencers.
That sounds pretty important.
So I was like, one of the other influencers, his name is John is Catholic is his Instagram handle. Makes Catholic jokes. There's like a whole Catholic subculture on Instagram. It's actually pretty sweet.
Sweet.
Yeah.
Okay.
Anyway.
So what do you think? How should we go about this? Should I like talk a little bit about my reservations?
Yeah, so
and my concerns?
I think that's a good place to start. I will say that I went through the document here and I marked it up and like wrote down some topics.
Yeah.
Basically just off of, he makes 3 pitches in this, is it an audience? Is that what you would call it? Address?
This was an address during this. Actually, why don't we, let's link this text in the show notes so that you can read the address of His Holiness Pope Leo XIV to Catholic digital missionaries and influencers at St. Peter's Basilica on Tuesday, the 29th of July in the year of our Lord 2025.
Bang. Nice. That was so fluent. You sounded like Pope Leo XIV. That's how fluent that was.
Wow.
You too, a native English speaker.
I think that we have different voices.
Yeah. I agree with you. Having only heard him a few times. No, I'm just kidding. Dude, I know that's not what you meant. But.
No, but let me say it again. Every time I hear him speak English, there's something that like moves in my heart that is like, I get a little bit teary. It's just so cool seeing the Pope and hearing my accent. And granted, he's got like a bit more of the Chicago accent, the Midwest and everything, but still just like, it's an American accent, and there's something so cool about that.
It's special.
It's doing something. Yeah, it's amazing.
All right, so I think lead with your reservations, though, because I actually think he addresses some of them.
He does, and I was grateful for that.
Yeah.
With that in mind, here's some of the reservations that I have. So part of this comes from having read The Anxious Generation, which, by the way, if we can ever find a way to get Jonathan Haidt on the show and talk to him about that, I think it'd be tremendous. But The Anxious Generation lays out some of the consequences that we never knew about regarding social media and the way that it's affecting young people, children. I think, and he doesn't really get into this in the book, but I suspect that we would notice a lot of those also happening to adults who are using or overusing social media. In any case, this thing that presents itself at first as such a tremendous tool for connection and communication, it was like when I first decided I would start like a Facebook account, and I would get on Facebook, as we used to say. When I first made that decision, it was really cool because in the first couple of days, it's connecting me to all these people who I went to high school with, or people who I had grown up with who I hadn't talked to or heard from in years. So there's like just little messages. Hey, it's really cool to connect with you. How are you? How's everything? And then of course those stop after the first couple of days. And then you're just there. But like over time, I started to, I don't know, for me, the whole usage of social media, it started to wear thin. And I started to dislike the fact that it was like one of the first things that I would do every day was check social media. I really started to dislike, and I was only ever on Facebook personally. Yeah. I used poorly and without any effect Instagram and Twitter when I was the vocation director for the diocese. I had no idea how to use these particular platforms. And so I was a completely ineffective Catholic digital missionary and influencer.
This is why we didn't get invited.
Yeah, exactly. I was just ineffectual in all of that.
We blame you.
But this was even then, that's 11, 12 years ago.
Yeah.
That I was doing that. So if you think about the way that that those platforms have changed and the way that you would use them has changed, I was already behind and wasn't using them according to those like the most effective means back then.
Yeah.
I definitely wouldn't be able to do it now. Anyway, all that is to say, on a personal level, I started to have some reservations. But then when you started hearing about the algorithms, like when you first started, you didn't know that those algorithms were out there. Like that's not how we understood social media. We didn't know that they're basically just monitoring where you're from and the kinds of things that you look at and then feeding you stuff. And so we didn't know that we were getting kind of sucked into this thing where if you happen to respond to certain certain ideas or certain posts or something like that, that it was going to feed you more of that stuff. We didn't know about the echo chamber that was being created by the social media company.
Right.
And so it just seemed like, well, this is a good way to connect with people, but then you start getting into all this other stuff. Anyway, over time, and then you read, or you watch rather, on Netflix, The Social Dilemma.
I have not seen it, actually.
It's several years old now. But it basically exposes how the technology companies, these different social media platforms, were using data that they've mined from your accounts and from your usage to basically push stuff in your direction and to make their product more addictive, to like mess with your brain chemistry so that you need the dopamine hit from getting the like notification, from all this other stuff. And how like all these people who used to be executives at these tech companies were resigning because they couldn't stand it anymore. And they were leaving.
They found it unethical.
Yeah. And not only did they find these things to be unethical, but they were now getting off social media themselves and not allowing their children to use it.
Right.
And there was this, like, do you remember when you were in high school? We had this,
I do.
There was briefly this push. Sorry, I didn't finish that thought enough. That was good.
Yes.
There was briefly this push to get iPads to every single student.
Mm-hmm.
And the thinking was, we'll get every kid an iPad and that will help them because they'll be able to access more information. They'll be able to do all this stuff. And it like immediately proved to be a disaster and not the right way to go. I don't think we ever actually did it at your school.
I know that I never had an iPad. I think I was using laptops in some classes though.
That would make sense. But again, like at the time, the laptop was seen as like, here's a good tool.
Right.
Whereas there was this
it's the same deal is my point.
Yeah. But there was a thought that we were going to go like no textbooks, no notebooks.
Right.
Every student would just carry their iPad around and they would take their notes on their iPad. They would read their textbooks off the iPad. And that was the thinking. And it never came to fruition. And I thank God for that because at the time it sounded, wow, this is great.
Right.
What a genius idea.
I would have learned nothing.
Yeah.
I would have learned even less than I already did.
Exactly. So what we come to though is the realization.
That's a complaint about
time.
myself, not about my school. Okay. No, not accusing.
Fair. It's fair. No, that's definitely personal.
Okay.
It's definitely about you. You're the one who's too easily distracted.
Too easily distracted. Spent way too much time in your office.
But the thing is, like, over time, what we have come to understand about the power of those screens and the effect that just the light in those screens has on the brain.
Right.
And then the way that content is manufactured and pushed to people. It's gotten me to this point, like, of just realizing, all right, first of all, I need to reduce my time on screens because my eyes are tired.
Right. Very simply.
Yeah. Well, like back in the pandemic and everything, we're doing everything online. The only way to communicate with the parish was to do it through some sort of an online platform, whether that was sending an email or making a video for them or getting on social media in some way. And so in that way, it was like an effective communication tool. But even there, it was like, I'm spending way too much time on this. This is not really helping me. And then you get all the false information that starts flying around, or you get the suppression of information that should be out there that's not being allowed out because it doesn't benefit the companies, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. All this stuff happens. As all of that's going on, they're doing studies. And this is what the anxious generation talks about. The studies that they're doing that find that children who are given access to social media are significantly, exponentially more prone to anxiety, to depression. Their behavior suffers. There's an addictive quality to all of this. And it's changing the way that they think. It's changing the way that they function. And it's then having an effect socially on schools, on children interacting. Some of it is the consequence of like parenting styles changing over the last several decades, right? And as parenting styles have changed and concerns about parenting have changed, now add social media to that equation, and what you have is, well, parents can be called out on social media and publicly embarrassed for different things. Kids are doing this. Kids are calling each other out on social media, and it creates this firestorm around things that, like, once upon a time we never had to worry about. Like we didn't have I was in high school. I think it was a senior in high school when the first digital camera came out. It's like we didn't have even a digital image of ourselves.
Right.
Any pictures that we took were film, and if you didn't like the picture, you threw it away and cut up the negative, and nobody ever had to see that picture ever again.
Right.
You know? Whereas now, like, there's a digital copy floating out there somewhere.
Right.
There's so much. It's created such a world of pressure and everything. Anyway, all this brings me to, as I've been like reading Anxious Generation and thinking about my own decision to eliminate social media from my life, it's made me question like whether or not social media is the right place for parishes, for priests, for churches to be. And it's something I'm still wrestling with. Like I don't think that I've come to a full resolution of the question. And part of my reasoning is that it's about children. And by children, I mean anyone under the age of 18. But I also mean like really all of us in the way that we are children still, like still needing to grow. Is social media as a thing in itself good for us? And I'm not sure.
This is Marshall McLuhan, right? The medium is the message.
Well, yeah. But even there, it's like this, I think, is a thing that it has the potential to be used and to be used really, really well. But I'm not sure that we yet have the environment in which we can use this thing really well.
Right.
I'm not sure that we yet have the ability to counter the addictive influence of this stuff. Once upon a time, I keep going to the example of tobacco, right? Once upon a time, everybody smoked. And like parents smoked in their car with their children who weren't in car seats. And doctors would smoke while they were examining you. I remember actually when I was in seminary, I worked with the Missionaries of Charity in Madrid for a while for a summer. And there was a guy who the doctor had come to visit some of the homeless men who were living with the sisters. And he had been doing some work with this guy, and he pulled me in and he said, "You're going to help take care of this man. His feet were in terrible condition." And so he had like dead skin, just like peeling off his feet, and was causing a lot of pain. So the doctor was showing me how to cut the dead skin off this man's foot. Right. And he's teaching me how to do it without causing an infection, and then how to wrap his foot, how to put like the ointment and the cream that he needed to like help to heal his feet. And he's showing me how to do all of this stuff. And then he said to me, you've also got to tell him whenever you can, remind him that he shouldn't smoke, and remind him to eat vegetables or whatever the instruction was. Right. So a couple days later, I'm changing the dressings on this man's feet, and we're having a conversation. And I said to him, "Remember, you shouldn't smoke." And he's, of course, smoking a cigarette as I'm changing the dressings. I said, "Remember, the doctor said you shouldn't smoke." And he put his cigarette out and he looked at me and he said, "Yeah, but why should I listen to him? He smokes while he's telling you not to tell me not to smoke." And I was like, "You know what? You're right. The doctor was smoking while he told me to tell you not to smoke."
Right. Yeah.
And I'm like, that's a really good point.
Yeah, you got me there.
Yeah. So there's like that level of hypocrisy, I guess.
Yes.
Right? Yes. But as we've become more socially aware of what smoking does, what tobacco does, like we no longer have an environment where everybody just does this as a matter of course.
Yes.
Now, if people are going to smoke, you might see like some guys, like they have a cigar. They sit down and have a cigar together. Or it's a sense of like smoke in moderation. Right? It's not like constantly having a cigarette lit hanging from your lip.
Right.
It's like for certain events or socially you might do this. And so it's like all of the tobacco use carries with it a certain danger. Right. But people have figured out how to mitigate that danger.
And to
without
moderate
abusing the substance. Right. I don't know that we are at the place right now where we know how to actually mitigate the danger of social media, except that just like we have said that tobacco is something that can only be used by adults, and even then they should only ever use it with moderation. We don't say the same thing about social media.
Right.
Allegedly, and this is from the anxious generation, the law is that only those over the age of 13 can use social media, but that's not the case in practice. And there's no way to enforce that. And so what he says in Anxious Generation is that nobody under the age of 16 at least, and he would prefer 18, should have access to social media. It simply shouldn't happen. And we don't have a culture that says that.
No.
And so until we have a culture that says that, what can we really do? And this is where I'm like, I don't know if the church should be using social media, because I think the thing itself, it's not that it's immoral, because again, I think that you can use social media for good, but the thing itself is of such danger that until we have a culture that says this can be used according to the following safety precautions, until we have like a culture like that, for the church to just sort of be out there, especially like anything that has to do with youth ministry, I think it's too dangerous. I think what we're doing is giving tacit approval to say it's fine to use this without any real restriction, and not that that's what we're saying.
No,
right? It's not an explicit thing, but like somewhere under the surface, are we not maybe subconsciously communicating to our young people,
right, that this is
okay
families, to use?
Yeah. And not only that, but if we're encouraging people, follow us on social media.
Right. Then we are explicitly saying it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so that's where I've been like coming up against this thing. Again, for me, this isn't to discount the fact that social media and the technology that we have today is very easily exploited for very, very immoral purposes, right? Like the obscene proliferation of pornography all over the world, through social media, through the internet and everything, it's got to be stopped. So obviously there are ways that you can use this for very immoral purposes. The fact that there's such a thing as cyberbullying, that has ever entered our lexicon at all, is a sign that these means of communication can be used to an immoral end. But that's not my those are concerns for me, but my reasoning here and my thinking is more surrounding like the thing itself. And should we be giving approval to the thing itself, or if we're going to use the thing itself, should it be to advocate for restrictions on the thing itself?
Yeah.
Like if we're going to use social media, should we be advocating like explicitly nobody under the age of 18 should be using this? Yeah. Should we be advocating, hey, social media can be a place to connect and get some information, but then the instruction should be go outside, go talk to a person, go like get out of your screen, get away from all of this, go do something. So that's where I find myself.
Yeah. I mean, there's like a lot of interesting points in that. I mean, and different places I can go. I'm trying to figure out the order I want to do it in. So for like children using the internet. So what did I mean by the medium is the message? By analogy, right? Like there's a book by Nicholas Carr called The Shallows. You ever read it? What the internet is doing to our brains. Is that what the subtitle is? It doesn't matter. It's by Nicholas Carr. If you look it up, you'll find it. Dear listener. And he uses this analogy where, actually it's not an analogy, he just gives an example. He talks about this study that was done where certain people were given a printed piece of paper with some words on it. I don't know if it was a story, I don't know if it was an article, it was something, right? And then other people were given, and it had footnotes, and then there was other people that were given the same, story, article, whatever it was, but digitally, and it had hyperlinks. And the question was like, does hyperlinks impact your ability to remember something? And they found that the percentage remembered was something like 70% lower for the people who had hyperlinks. And so whenever I have this kind of conversation with people, I'll talk to them and I'll tell them this example. And I'll be like, and that was from hyperlinks. That was because the footnote was blue and you could click on it.
I was going to say,
not Instagram.
Do you know the answer to this? Like, were the hyperlinks something that people were clicking on as they read?
Yeah,
or
so
was
the
it just
idea
the
was
presence of the hyperlink?
I'm not sure if they were mandated to click on it.
Okay.
But the idea at least was that, like, the idea in the study was that they could go to the hyperlink for more context. So then they could then bring that context into the actual article. So, like, maybe they were mandated.
Yeah.
At least it seems like they did click on it, right?
Okay.
Via this description.
Yeah.
And again, like, so like what we see here is that, because there's nothing morally evil about hyperlinks, right? Like, we're just seeing that
Depends on what you're linking to.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. I think we should put that on a T-shirt. But the point is that like, so the message of the internet has nothing to do almost with what's on the internet, what you're looking at. I mean, there is something to that, obviously, right? There is a drastic difference between reading a sports article and watching pornography, obviously, right?
Correct. Yes.
Right.
Yes.
I know. I'm here for the brilliant, the strokes of brilliance.
That's insight, is what I would call that.
Yeah,
that's
exactly.
Like a profound insight. Yeah,
yes,
wow.
exactly.
I'm so glad you made the distinction.
You're welcome. You're welcome.
I never would
Dear
have made
listener.
the distinction
No,
myself.
but my point is that like, no matter what you're doing on the internet, it's impacting you. And so something that could even factor into this decision is that, like, I think there is no doubt. I couldn't point you to a specific journal article or scientific, any scientific evidence, but I feel like it simply must be this way, that the internet decreases our ability to pay attention. And so, like, what impact has that had on people's development of an interior life, right? And I would argue specifically social media is culpable for that, right? It is that constant hit of dopamine, right? That might do that. And so, like, you could even bring the conversation there, which is like, do we, like, forget what they could run into, and, we want them to go outside and we want them to develop, these, we want them to develop into, like, well put together integrated adults, right? But also, like, does it mitigate the development of a prayer life? And so that's one place I wanted to bring it. Another just thing that came up in my mind while you were speaking was they being is it Wisconsin, the state of Wisconsin, wanted to make child pornography, child pornography was obviously illegal. They wanted to make it illegal for, I think it was like you had to be a certain age to get into a website. They were going to put some kind of measure in there that if you were under the age of 18 or 21, you would not be able to access the site at all via, like, IPN number. I'm not a tech guru, so I couldn't tell you how that kind of thing works.
Yeah.
Right. But it was going to prevent people on certain, what is it, like a router or whatever, from accessing. It would know your age. And all of these pornography companies pulled out of the state because as soon as they weren't able to reach children, they knew they weren't going to be, quote unquote, successful. Which is like, so that, like, tells you how much of a problem the internet is for children. You know what I mean? Right. And so, like, to me, that is, like, fantastic evidence for your point.
Yeah. So the unfettered, unrestricted,
right,
unregulated, and I always hesitate when I go there because I'm like, I want to believe in the better angels of our nature, that we can govern ourselves by growing in virtue. Right. But the reality is that we don't do a great job of governing ourselves by growing in virtue. Like, so often we need someone else to enforce a law.
Yeah.
So anyway, all of that, like, there are major problems, obviously, with all of this.
Right.
But I'm still I'm still wrestling with this. As much as it might seem like I've made some solid decisions about this, like, any decisions that I've made surrounding the use of social media are personal and are not yet applied at a parish level or at an ecclesial level. But I have some serious reservations, and I'm still kind of working through them. So let's then come to Pope Leo
I was going to say, so we've gone through a lot of negatives
to Catholic digital missionaries and influencers.
Yeah, and he speaks a lot of positives.
Well, he speaks a lot of positives, but I think he also gives, like, at least the beginnings of a sketch towards how, as Catholics, we ought to approach these things. And so he's giving us, I think, some important principles. So the first thing that I see, then you tell me the first thing that you see, is that he's reminding those Catholic digital missionaries and influencers that this is at the very beginning in number 1. You are here to renew your commitment to nourish Christian hope in social networks and online spaces. Perhaps today more than ever, we need missionary disciples who convey the gift of the risen Lord to the world. So that's the first thing that I notice, that like these digital missionaries are to nourish Christian hope in social networks and online spaces.
That was the second thing I noticed. I'm going to be honest with you.
Okay, what was the first thing that you noticed?
The first thing I noticed was he said, this is the mission of the church, to proclaim peace to the world. Right? Because I think that, like, knowing where it was going, right?
Yeah.
Well, two thoughts. The first is that knowing where it's going, it's like, well, then peace is the thing that needs to saturate this whole document. This very short document, but document, right? And then also, I wrote down, I'm reading the book, The Soul of the Apostolate. And at the very beginning of that book, it says something along the lines, I'm paraphrasing, that the church has been given the missionary of Christ. The church has been given the mission of Christ by Christ himself, and that mission is his love. You know, and so like I just saw a connection between those two things, right? Where we proclaim peace to the world, and what is peace? Right? Peace is like being one with Christ. Yeah. Right. And so, but like the second thing I had was nourish Christian hope. So we're on the same page. Okay, good. So then go to number 2 in this address, and you're going to see there's a second challenge in this mission. Always look for the suffering flesh of Christ in every brother and sister you encounter online. Today we find ourselves in a new culture, deeply characterized and formed by technology. It is up to us, it is up to each one of you to ensure that this culture remains human. And this is really important. What he's doing here is Leo is reminding us that these technological things that we have very easily like become divorced from humanity. And so you'll see like behavior, the things that people write on the internet in the comment section are inhuman. And not just impolite. I don't just mean like that was a rude thing to write to somebody. But there's a lack of humanity. And then when you find out that how many of those different accounts or comments that are being left by a bot that's just been programmed to do this. So here's a funny thing, right? I decided that I would watch the Pope's Mass at Tor Vergata, the Mass for the Jubilee of Youth. And I was watching it on YouTube because I was not able to get up early enough in the morning to watch it live on TV. And so having missed the Mass, granted, to get up early enough to have watched it on TV, the Mass was in the morning in Rome, and Rome is 6 hours ahead of us. So I would have had to be up at like 4 a.m. to do that. So I have no regrets. I didn't think you did. This is not suggesting that I lacked discipline or anything like that. But I was watching, and it was the live video, of course, after the fact, but because it's recorded live, the comments that people are leaving keep popping up. And there was a commenter who just kept commenting with like various names of saints, and then like a title. So it would say something like Venerable Saint Joseph, period, Terror of Demons, / Hope of the Dying, semicolon, Patron of Fathers. What? And then it would say BTW, intercede. BTW? And so every single thing that whatever this was that was commenting, it was always including BTW. And I'm like, either this is somebody who doesn't understand what BTW means. Or this is not an actual person making these comments. And so like there's an AI something that has decided to start leaving comments on this. And it was the most bizarre thing. And I'm like, this is supposed to be about keeping things human. Right. Right.
And here we are, and this is profoundly inhuman.
Yeah.
So I just so appreciated that the role of the Catholic digital missionary and social media influencer is to ensure that the culture online remains human. That this is technology that is meant to be in service to humanity, not meant to replace humanity. And this is a thing, go back to all of the different things that we've talked about regarding technology and how the church's social teaching has developed over time to respond to different circumstances and different issues, that certain technologies are to be considered inhuman because they rob humanity of their dignity. And so this is like a place where I think there's a technology out there that has the potential to rob us of dignity. Now, I don't know if that means that we can't use it at all, or if that means that we have to refine the technology such that the things that make it inhuman or hostile to human flourishing or to humanity itself, maybe that's what needs to be refined. I don't know, but I just really appreciated that the role of the digital missionary is to ensure that this remains human.
So there's two things I want to say to this. The first is your explanation kind of helped that story, that little tangent, put into perspective one of the things that he writes here, which is he says, where is it? It's in 2. It says, this is a challenge that we must face, reflecting on, so he's talking about the technological dimension is present in almost everything, especially as the widespread adoption of artificial intelligence will mark a new era in the lives of individuals and society as a whole, right? You were just saying that. This is a challenge that we must face, reflecting on the authenticity of our witness, on our ability to listen and speak, and our capacity to understand and to be understood. We have a duty to work together to develop a way of thinking, to develop a language of our time that gives voice to love. Right? So like I was, when I read that at first, I was like, develop a language. Like, but I wasn't thinking about it in the context of culture, right? Language is so essential to culture. And so there is an internet culture that needs to be purified. Like the internet culture exists already. We need to. That's why earlier he says like nurture a culture of Christian humanism. And funny enough, like I don't want to say I had a red flag go up there. It's just that anytime I've ever used the word humanism, it's usually with a negative connotation. Yeah. Because like whenever I'm talking about it, I'm really talking about secular humanism. So I've never really thought about the concept of Christian humanism. And I would be curious even if you have thoughts on it, how you would define Christian humanism. Not to put you on the spot like that. We could think about it and come back to it much later. But you know what I mean? So this idea of creating a culture based around language, the usage of language, and further, like something that I've been thinking about, as well as like, well, how should AI play a role in in this ministry, like in our digital evangelization as Veritas as a whole, because I do use AI, like I use it for, I don't know if you know this, I use it for editing some audio sometimes. Sure. Like there's a plugin, so there's something like, I'll do one right now. Brace yourselves, listeners. A plosive is coming, right? So if you go like this, that's a plosive. And so there's a plugin I use that I will apply to that, so you may not actually hear it, right? That removes those.
Right.
And so it's like, and it's all it does is it saves me like 40 minutes of having to go through every single, P and B and the entire track of everybody and removing them, And so like
that's an example though of AI as a tool in service to something more.
Right.
Where obviously like,
but I would never want to use AI to create a blog post off of one of your daily reflections. You know what I mean?
Right.
I'm not saying I won't use a transcription that it'll make for me.
Right. Even AI giving you a transcription is helpful.
Right. It's not doing the job itself.
Yeah. And I've done the same thing. Like I wanted to see what would AI come up with if I gave it a couple of prompts to write something.
Right.
And it wrote me one page, which is I asked for one page about a gospel passage and to highlight some things. It highlighted some good things. There was like it was theologically sound.
Right.
It was repetitive. Like you could tell that this was written by
a computer,
by something that's not human. Yeah,
yeah.
Absolutely needed a human editor to
Right.
change the tone of certain things and to remove the redundant stuff. But very basically, it was something actually pretty good.
Yeah. There was also that one time I turned the two of us into babies.
Yeah.
With AI. I don't know if you remember that.
I do remember that. Yeah.
It came up as an option in our studio for some reason.
This is using AI to make a joke.
Yes.
To do something funny. All of that is okay.
And it was.
Yeah. I don't have any issue with that kind of stuff. But where it can get dangerous is like when this is replacing the human touch, or when this is creating something that you can't tell when something is real or fake. And that puts the human person in the position of not really knowing. And the human person is made to actually have, if we think about Christian humanism, right? Christian humanism recognizes the dignity of the human person created in the image and likeness of God. And if we recognize the dignity of the human person created in the image and likeness of God, then we also are going to recognize the mission for which that human person is created and go all the way back to Genesis. And what do you find is the mission of the human person? The mission of the human person is to fill the whole earth and subdue it, to have dominion over all of the creatures, right? To basically have this ruling quality over the world. And so to order creation properly, right? So to order our use of creation the right way, to order all this. So this is where it's really important. And this is where, again, social media can kind of get us into trouble. So continuing on from where you left off, Matt.
Yes.
Pope Leo goes on to say, it is not simply a matter of generating content, but of creating an encounter of hearts.
You must have loved that.
I did. Like so much, because social media, so much of it is just about the next thing.
Yeah.
Pushing something out there, creating the content that somebody will click on that will keep them scrolling. So much of, and for this, I blame the companies. I don't blame the people who make content. Like the nature. Again, this is where the very nature of social media needs to be transformed and converted, right? Because until that happens, we are in too dangerous a place. So the temptation can be, we just have to generate content. We just have to keep cranking things out. But the stuff that we're putting out there isn't necessarily of really good quality. Even like look at a lot of AI generated images. They're not always of good quality. You know, people have like 7 fingers and they're only supposed to have 5, by nature at least. Or there's something about those images that they all start to look the same.
They're fake. Yeah.
You can tell when you're looking at certain images that are like artwork or something created by AI, illustrations by AI. When you get into some of the stuff where they've done photographs, it's a little harder to tell. When they've done videos, it's a little harder to tell.
I would also point out that, like, I mean, so it depends on like what AI engine you're using. Probably, I don't know if engine's the proper word, but I'm sure there are various degrees of efficacy to these engines. But I'll also point out how confusing it can be, in the sense that, like, so I for one of the thumbnails for Let Me Be Frank. Let Me Be Frank with Bishop Frank Caggiano. If you don't know what it is, you should look it up. And they did an episode on St. Francis of Assisi, because he was in Rome and he went to and in Assisi with the seminarians of the diocese. And I made a clip out of it that was like 11, 12 minutes long. It was him talking about St. Francis's story, and St. Francis's story is awesome, And so I was like, well, I'll make a couple thumbnails off paintings of St. Francis that we have, but I'm also going to put it into an AI image generator, see what pops up, Could be a cool image. Like, I've seen people do that before, and they're usually kind of cool, And first of all, none of them were very good. But by the end of it, like, St. Francis was a woman with a beard and a brown habit on. Like, that was the image it was creating, And so it was like this very, like, distinct example where it was like, this AI model has no idea what Christian anthropology is, as it creates an image of St. Francis, And I just I was kind of sitting there chuckling to myself almost, at like how insane this was, that I was trying to create a thumbnail of St. Francis and it was giving me a woman in a brown habit, like who had a beard, I was like, what is this?
Super weird.
Right. It was super weird.
Super weird.
And then also and admittedly, my son walked over right afterwards, and my son is young enough that like he won't understand, quite yet. But I was like, I don't even want this up on my computer while he's like in this room,
Yeah.
Realizing that to an extent that might have been like overprotectiveness. I think the instinct is good. It's only potentially overprotective because he's very young,
Yeah,
but
I'm not going to fault you for that. I don't think you're wrong. But
yeah,
all this is to say, like, there's an absence of authentic human connection.
Yeah.
And look, I don't discount the fact that somebody going onto social media can find that they're not the only person who feels the way that they feel, or who is looking for information the way that they're looking for information. That's, of course, very possible. But there is also this very inhuman element of it, which is that remains entirely this sort of secret world that only exists in the digital space. There's a way that some of those online communities are not real human communities.
Right.
And you've got to break through that. You've got to get to that place where there's the authentic human relationship. And this is it's a really important thing.
Yeah.
Now there's a difference, like what we're doing right now. This is a synchronous form of communication.
Yes.
So we're talking to each other live, even though we're not in the same room, or even in the same state at the moment.
Yeah.
We're able to see each other. There's an authenticity about what we're doing because there is a real sort of human connection. I know you as a real person.
Yeah.
There's a way that this is relational, in a way that if I was just sending you messages on a social media platform, it would not be the same sort of a thing. So yes, there can be a pathway through the social media networks to a human encounter. But if the social media networks are keeping the relationships just there in this digital space, it creates, like, at the level of the human heart and the human brain, a different way of viewing relationship.
Yeah.
That relationship is always mediated, that there's never a face-to-face, or that this relationship becomes more real to me than the actual human being who I can talk to and hear their voice.
Yeah.
And that can be a really dangerous thing as well.
There's also the reality that, like, okay, a couple of things that jogged my memory on. The first is, I think that there is this, and he uses the phrase fake news. Admittedly, I thought that was kind of funny that the phrase fake news made its way into a papal address, But like
the American Pope is the one saying
fake
fake news.
I was like, this is so funny.
I thought it was great.
But like, there is like a people have always struggled with conflict, I imagine,
I think
if you
read a history book, you're going to see that conflict has certainly marked the human condition.
Yeah, that's not what I meant. I meant like interpersonal, like husbands and wives arguing. People have avoided things like that, I imagine.
Well, we've got a gospel coming up. Yeah, we've got a gospel coming up where Jesus says, I have come to set the world on fire, and how I wish it were already blazing. I will set mother-in-law against daughter-in-law.
Right, exactly. Yep. And people have so that's a tendency, and people have wanted to avoid it, but I would imagine that there's never been more conflict avoidance in a passive-aggressive manner than ever before than today because of the internet.
Yeah.
And like how inhuman that is, like that you can legitimately like hide behind a camera, or hide behind a laptop screen or a cell phone screen, and like either just totally ignore someone, or like curse them out and not have to face the repercussions of it,
Yeah. Well, this is something that in Anxious Generation he talks about, that there's there's always a certain degree of, like, I'm nervous as I'm growing up about going and talking to an adult about X, Y, or Z. Like, I have to go talk to a stranger to ask for a job application.
Sure.
And you kind of have to learn how to do that. And the only way to learn is by going and doing it.
Yeah.
Well, there was a time when this was a normal thing that you were kind of sent out to do on your own.
Yeah.
And then things started to shift. Parenting styles shifted. And so this became a thing that you would do with a parent to do the introduction for you. Or a parent to kind of lead you into it, or even a parent who would get the job application for you and give it to you. And then you shift to like a digital age when either the application is available to download or to fill out online without you ever having to talk to a person, or you can request it via email or via a message online without having to actually go in and talk to a person.
Right.
And so now this skill that would normally have been built up very naturally, the first time you have to go and ask a question at a customer service desk, like you're at the airport and you can't figure out where your plane is supposed to be, and you have to actually go and ask a person where to go. Like the screens aren't working for some reason. It's like causing genuine panic.
Right. Yeah.
Because
like
people don't know how to do this anymore.
Yeah.
So yeah, there's that way of like we've lost an element of our humanity. We've got to get it back. But that sense of like, if we're going to be, and this brings it back maybe to the ecclesial level. If we're going to be online, if we're going to be using social networks and social media stuff as a means of communicating the gospel, if we're going to be digital missionaries and social media influencers, it can't be simply a matter of generating content, as the Pope says, but of creating an encounter of hearts. Well, the only way we create the encounter of hearts is, first of all, like the interpersonal encounter of heart. And the encounter of heart, I am not convinced happens on a screen. Even synchronous stuff. Like there can be a way of like, I feel like I relate to you. And here's my experience with that, right? With Catholic Psych and working with Catholic Psych, I was put into a group and we met every week on Zoom. And we'd have a 1-hour meeting on Zoom. And when I had the chance to meet the people in my group in person for the first time, excuse me, I shouldn't say that. I had actually met all of them in person before we knew that we were going to be in a group together. We met at an event. We got to meet in person, and then we were put into this group together. Anyway, to like actually meet them in person for the first time was wild. Yeah. Like the first time we got to be together after only seeing each other on the screen, it was great. And then there were other people who, through like the Catholic Psych community, you'd have like these other meetings and you'd end up meeting them on a Zoom call. And then you meet in person. And like, number one, the thing is like, I thought you'd be taller. Yeah. But there's this like, I do actually know these people. There's a real way in which I know them.
Right, totally.
And at the same time, there's a way that I don't know, even though we've talked to each other and seen it's like, it's a pretty scripted and set sort of a template. We're meeting, it's a Zoom meeting, we're talking about this subject. There's not a whole lot of interpersonal sharing, but there is something that's real, that's authentic, that's happening. But the place where hearts are really able to encounter one another is when you put people in person.
Yeah.
There is no substitute for that.
Right.
And so I think where it gets dangerous is when social media becomes the community and the actual authentic real community begins to feel farther away.
Right.
And so what happens if your social media community is the real one to you, then if you don't see reflected in the people around you exactly what you've chosen to surround yourself with online, then you start to think that the actual humans who are around you or who live in your neighborhood or in your town are against you. And that means that there's no possibility of any kind of authentic encounter of heart because everybody's against me. And this is where like that echo chamber of the algorithm is so dangerous. And this is why there needs to be like a massive conversion. So can we go to the number 3 then?
Yeah, sure. That the next thing I wanted to say had to do with number 3. So let's do it.
Yeah. I think this is great.
Oh,
and actually,
I want to say one more thing. Can I say one
more
thing?
Go ahead. Yeah.
So I was gonna double down on your example, which is even this, right? Where I talked to you on so we use Riverside to record, Riverside FM. If you want to look it up, dear listener. I don't know why I keep calling you dear.
They're not paying us.
It's my affection toward you.
It's an unpaid ad.
That's right. Yeah. Well, I do like their platform, so I'm happy
I do
to give
too.
it to them.
I think they do a great job for us.
Right, but can you hear the dog?
I can.
There you go. Yeah.
Hey, puppy.
There's a difference between you and me chatting on here, and I guess like there's a template sort of here. I mean, we're pretty free, but we do have generally we follow a template. And like me having you over for dinner, like there's just such a massive difference between that, and I think that everyone who's ever been on a Zoom call with a friend or like had to, do some kind of work with a friend over the internet, can relate to that,
Oh yeah.
Like it's just so different.
One of my favorite things was during the pandemic, we'd have priest meetings on Zoom, and like there was one priest who I would always try during the meetings to make him laugh. But of course, I'm not the one talking. There's like the bishop is talking or something. So I would be texting him and just trying to get him to like look at his phone while like, so I'd see his eyes go down and you'd see him like kind of like making a motion with his arm. You couldn't quite see his hand, but you could tell that he was looking down at a phone. Right. And every once in a while I'd get a little smirk and I was like, I got him. And like, I just knew that I was, and it was so much fun to try that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
Anyway, so Pope Leo goes on then as he's
Number
wrapping
3.
up this address. And I think this is just a great little move that he makes. And I'd encourage you, read the text of this. Like go and look at the actual text because there's something interesing that's happening. He says,
but whatever you do, don't read it online.
No, that's the only place you can find it. Go ahead and read it online. That's okay. Yeah. This brings us to the third invitation in this mission, which I extend to all of you. Quote, go and mend the nets. End quote. Jesus called his first apostles while they were mending their fishing nets. He asks the same of us today. Now, this is really interesting because Jesus did not ask the apostles to mend their nets. They were doing that on their own. He found them mending the nets and said, come follow me. And so Leo is saying this is his request. Like there's something personal about this. As the universal shepherd of the church, Leo is asking all of us or all of the digital missionaries and social media influencers to go and mend the nets. Not come follow me, but go mend the nets. Like start fixing the broken thing here so that it can become a way to follow Jesus. Right? And that's actually really interesting. He asks
how
us
should
to
one
weave,
do that, I ask?
Well, Leo will go on and say this. Indeed, he asks us to weave other nets, networks of relationships, of love, of gratuitous sharing where friendship is profound and authentic, networks where we can mend what has been broken, heal from loneliness, not focus on the number of followers, but experience the greatness of infinite love in every encounter, networks that give space to others more than to ourselves, where no bubble can silence the voices of the weakest, networks that liberate and save, networks that help us rediscover the beauty of looking into each other's eyes, networks of truth. So, this is real interesting, right? Because he's saying to those who would be in that digital space as missionaries and as evangelists, like, fix the broken community. Now, he doesn't provide prescription, just the vision for what it should be. So fix this broken thing so that it can be this. So he's giving us the vision, and I think it's good that he does not dive into the details of how to actually do the fixing, because there's probably a lot more than he would be as Pope that he would be able to tackle. But there are some important things here. And so this is where, again, I'm like, what's the role of the church, like at the parish level? What's the role of the parish? What's the role of the diocese in how we use this? And might it not be for things like advocating with parents and with school systems to limit the use of technology? Might it be at the political level, like part of our engagement as a church with the public square?
Yeah.
Might it be to advocate for some serious oversight and regulation
Yeah.
of this industry that is unregulated, that is the Wild West, and that is not serving the needs of our children.
It's very interesting because I think built into like that short paragraph is that the final end, not going to use that could be used philosophically as in like the why. I don't mean the why. I mean the landing spot, the landing place of any kind of digital interaction should ultimately be some kind of physical interaction. Like I think that you could get there. At least in the sense of a...
Should we say
I don't know actually, because like let's say that someone's got like a bajillion followers,
Yeah,
Matt Fradd's not meeting all of us,
Yeah. Well, let's say something like in-person, interpersonal. Right?
Yeah.
It doesn't have to be physical, but there's a huge difference between when I listen to a band digitally online and if I go to that band's concert.
Sure.
When I'm at the concert, I am in a certain way having an encounter with everybody else in the audience. We have a shared human experience of listening to this band that is different than if I just listen to the band by myself and then tell somebody you should listen to this band and they by themselves listen to that band.
Yeah, but you know what? Like, okay, so fair enough. But I would say that if you say to someone, hey, you should listen to that band, and then you guys both talk about it later on, there's something there.
There is, yep.
So there's some kind of communication there.
Yeah, even that, there's a difference in like, all right, I told you to listen to this, and you went and listened to it, as opposed to like back in the days of vinyl, come over and listen to this song. I want to play this for you. And together you sit and listen to it. This is also the difference between like how television is watched. It used to be a TV show was on and it was only on at a certain time. And you either watched it with other people or everybody you knew was watching that show also at the same time.
Right.
And then you could talk about the experience that you had of watching it or just what the show was and everything. Now when it's entirely up to you to watch, you watch by yourself when you want, according to your schedule. It's deeply not not interpersonal. It's individualistic. Right?
Yes.
So
it
again,
is a culture of isolation.
Yeah. The difference of a shared experience.
Yeah.
We go to a concert together and we listen to this music together. We go to a movie and we watch the movie together. There's a difference, right? And again, this is where like the more we get isolated into this thing. So if I go to a talk and I listen to this person give a talk, I'm part of the event. Everybody is hearing the same message. That same talk could be recorded and people can listen to it. Like you can listen to the radio or you can listen to a podcast, which is a crazy idea. I know, but you could listen to that and sure, like you might meet somebody who also listens to the same podcast as you and you can talk about that. And so there is in that way a shared experience. But you have to get to the point of being able to talk about the music or the podcast.
Yeah.
Before you do this. I was actually with two couples the other night. One is a married couple. The other is an engaged couple. The married couple is mentoring the engaged couple to help them get ready for marriage. And at one point in the conversation, we were talking about music, and one of the guys asked me, Father, what kind of music do you like? But before I could answer that question, one of the folks who were hosting us had a dog, and like they had 2-3 dogs, I don't know. And like one of the dogs just started barking like crazy. And so we all just kind of got distracted by the dog. So together in this encounter and in this interpersonal experience, we were all distracted. Right. And I never got to talk about what kind of music I like to listen to. So it's like, dodge the bullet, didn't have to share personally. This is great. Right. Anyway, all that is to say, I think.
Yeah.
Well, I think this is where we get to that point of like, what is it that like Leo has laid out like the important things that we have to be careful of and that we have to be aware of. And it's going to be up to us to figure out the practical method to apply this in the world. And I'm not sure what that is.
Well, so I do think that he gives a little hint as to how to do it as well. So the first thing is, okay, the reason that I said it leads to that physical connection was because he said healing of loneliness, and if you never end up in the same room as the person, like, then that healing from loneliness, it's not going to happen, I don't think. I think it demands being in the same room as someone.
I agree.
It also said the beauty of looking into each other's eyes. I was like, wow, okay, right. So he's literally saying, like, be face to face, right?
Yeah.
But I guess you know, the last thing that stuck out to me is he talks about being agents of communion, and perhaps that stuck out to me because, so tangentially here, have you ever had a number that you like saw pop up in your life with frequency? And you never, like, it didn't necessarily mean anything, but you just have noticed it a lot?
You mean like a telephone number?
No. Okay. So, like, for me, for whatever reason.
You gotta remember, I grew up in an era when, like, I can remember my home telephone number from when I was a kid, and I can remember one of my best friend's home telephone numbers.
Right. Fair enough.
Those phone numbers,
I guess, like, it could be within that context, but that's not really what I mean. So, like, here's the example, okay? This is going to sound cornier than I'm intended to, but I'll just go ahead and say, like, the Lord uses literally everything, even things like this. And so the number 1218 has popped up in my life often. And by pop up, I mean I've just noticed it. And I think the reason I originally started noticing the number 1218 is because it was just around that time that I ate lunch in high school. And so I would be looking at the clock often, and I would see the number 1218. But anytime after that, like, I would notice it, you know? I would be like, oh, it's 1218, you know? And then I heard a story once, actually from Liz Sweeney on Restless, where she talked about how she had a similar phenomena where that she would see this number, and like the number came to mean something significant to her, and then she took that number and put it in her favorite book of the Bible, and it was a verse that applied to her. Right? I was like, I'm going to do that. And so I looked up Romans 12:18, and it basically says, live at peace with everyone insofar as you are able to. And that meant a lot to me as someone who has a tendency to get angry sometimes. I was like, oh, I cannot believe this is what it turned out to be. You know? And so I kind of looked, like, I saw agents of communion, and I was like, what a method, you know? Using this platform that has been so used to spread, I mean, like, calumny and dissension and anger and but, like, beyond anger, fury and the desire for revenge, you know, that, like, well, how can we use the internet? Not in that way. Use the internet as an agent of communion. And so, like, to an extent, that means trying to live out the Christian life that St. Paul talks about in Romans, which is, like, you know, well, I don't know if he says it in Romans exactly, but the point is, like, with kindness and saying good things. He literally says, like, say things that will be helpful to people. You know, like, which sounds like very basic advice, but it's good advice, you know, like, don't approach things with malice. You know, he could follow that up with you dints, you know, but he doesn't because he's writing the Bible. and that wouldn't be following his own advice.
Deep down, he's a nice guy. Yeah.
Yeah. Although, doesn't he start the letter to the Galatians with, you stupid Galatians?
He doesn't start it with that, but he does tell them that they are stupid, which is, again, a favorite passage of mine.
Yeah.
So let's take that quote a little bit further here. He says, be agents of communion, capable of breaking down the logic of division and polarization, of individualism and egocentrism. So breaking down the logic of division and polarization, of individualism and egocentrism, because fundamentally the logic that those isms follow is really dangerous.
Yeah.
Right? It's not a logic that actually makes sense because they're based on false premises. So, like, division and polarization, individualism, egocentrism, these are rooted in something that's false. So we have to, if we're going to be agents of communion, we have to be able to break down, that is, like, dismantle this flawed, false logic so as to promote a logic of communion. And that's where he says, then center yourselves on Christ, because Christ then becomes the focal point. And that allows you to overcome the logic of the world, of fake news, of frivolity. You overcome all of those logics with the beauty of light and truth.
And perhaps to bring it full circle, right? That's why I said the first thing that I noticed had to do with the book, The Soul of the Apostolate.
Mm-hmm.
And admittedly, I'm like 13 pages into this book, but it's
okay.
so it's not that I have a full scope of this book, but rather like even that early on, he's saying some profound things.
No, you've pretty much got the whole crux of the entire argument of the book. Like,
yeah.
You could stop there.
Right, fair enough.
No, don't do that. Don't read the whole thing. Read the whole thing.
Yeah.
It's worth it. Yeah.
But he
Sorry.
says
I'm
like
supposed to encourage spiritual reading.
Yeah. Encouraged. I want you to know I feel encouraged.
Good.
But he says basically like he talks about the missionary who has an interior life versus the one who doesn't, and how the Lord justly what's he do? He cuts off, in a sense, the success of the mission for the one who doesn't have the interior life, because in order to accomplish a supernatural end, Christ accomplishes supernatural ends in and through us. We don't do that apart from him. And so like he very justly cuts things off, And so the point is like, well, I would argue that like being an agent of communion according to a Christian humanism, that would be a spiritual end. And so like really, if you want to do this, if we want to repair the internet space, then like one needs to be rooted in Christ, right? Because you're not going to be able to do something that bears that supernatural fruit if it's not Christ acting in and through you.
Now, and that's where I come to the point of to be a digital missionary, as any missionary needs to have an interior life, needs to have a spiritual life. To be a missionary in that social media sphere, I think, is all the much harder, because I don't think that social media lends itself to cultivating the interior life.
No.
I don't know that there's much of an interior life when you're wrapped up in social media stuff. And maybe that's the greatest danger. Is like, how can we encourage people to have an interior life while also encouraging them to use social media? And yet social media can be such a great tool. Yeah. We have to remove from social media the things that make it inimical to an interior life.
Yes. I would say this, like, even as a starting position, like I know that I'm not answering the question you just posed.
Right.
But from a practical perspective, as someone who, does this, jokes aside, like I spend a lot of time on the internet, right? For my job, which is a missionary job in nature, if you will,
And by the way, Matt, I'm glad that you do it and I don't have to.
Yeah, no, fair enough. Enough.
I'm grateful for that. I'm grateful to you. I'm grateful to God that I don't have to do that stuff. So thank you.
Right.
Thank you for falling on that hand grenade for me.
Yeah, you're
really
welcome.
Appreciate it. You're the best.
You're welcome. But the point is, like, I've had to very intentionally incorporate screen breaks.
Yeah.
Like from a very human and practical perspective, it's like, well, I shouldn't be looking at the screen for this long. Like that's not healthy. And so just incorporating breaks where this is one of the beauties of I get to work from home pretty often, and it's like, well, I actually go out and I interact with my family. Like I try not to, it's not just that I'm taking a break from work, it's that I'm taking a break from a screen. And so like I go interact with a human being, and then I guess I don't want to say I get that human like fix, that's terrible language to use, but like it's almost like it restores my humanity. And then I return to it. And of course the at a minimum would be like, you can't give what you don't have, right? Like I have to do that, you know? So I guess my point is anyone who's doing this kind of thing has to have that, because we're made for relationship, and that's why this is what it, this is why this is all tending that direction. The telos of the internet should actually be relationship, even if it's not at the moment.
So go outside.
Yeah.
Go talk to a person. Go spend time in front of the Blessed Sacrament.
And don't forget to like and subscribe.
You see, this is the challenge. Like, there's such a truth that needs to be proclaimed about this, but like,
I'm sorry, I couldn't help it. I couldn't help it.
It's so good because like I think like this is just a lived example of how difficult this can be. Like the irony that we want to talk about the challenges of social media, and we're doing so in something that falls into the umbrella category of social media.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. Please do those other things instead of liking and subscribing. I promise I'm not a terrible person.
Yeah. For every minute that you spend on social media, you should spend an hour in front of the Blessed Sacrament. Is that what I was going?
Yeah. Is that?
I don't know.
Hey, Father, I think at that point, I'd have to live to like 350.
I'm not being prescriptive here. I'm just making a suggestion.
Yeah. No. Yeah. I have heard before that, if you're going to spend 20 minutes on Instagram, you need to spend at least 20 minutes in prayer, like a 1-to-1. I've heard that advice before.
I don't think that's bad advice, actually.
Yeah.
Just to remind you of reality and of God instead.
I mean, heck, you could apply that to like if you're going to spend 2 hours watching a baseball game, with prayer perhaps being various activities of reading the Bible, reading spiritual reading, obviously open to interpretation. Anyway.
Yeah. Well, go read the address of His Holiness Pope Leo XIV to Catholic digital missionaries and influencers. We've linked it in the show notes. It's really good. And pray for the Holy Father because he's moving, and I think he's gonna be an important voice for us in this digital age.
Amen.
Thanks, Matt.
All right, thanks, Father.
See ya.
Thanks for watching today's video. Let us know what you thought down below, and don't forget to like and subscribe.